Most people believe wealth comes from being smarter or faster than others. But what I've learned is that intelligence matters far less than structure and time. If you understand compounding, you don't have to outthink anyone. You just have to let the math do the work. Einstein understood compounding in theory, but here's the more interesting question. What did his wife do with a divorce settlement? Because the answer shows the difference between knowing the math and using it, and we'll come back to that. I'm Steve Nowert. I'm teaching this because I've watched compounding work in real life and not just on paper. I've also seen what happens when people ignore it or fight it. And my goal here is to show you a repeatable way to let time and structure do the heavy lifting. Compounding didn't begin on Wall Street. It began with a mathematician trying to understand interest. In 1683, Jacob Bernoulli discovered that growth accelerates when time is allowed to do its work, and that insight still governs how money grows today. I think this is what Einstein was getting at. When you own the asset, compounding works for you. Income grows and equity builds over time. But when you don't own it, you're still part of the system, but you're paying rent instead of collecting it. It's the same force, but you're on a different side of the equation. Warren Buffett didn't win by being flashy, he won by waiting. His favorite holding period was forever, because he understood where compounding does its best work. If you look at the chart, notice how growth is steady for years, then accelerates sharply at the end. That's Jacob Bernoulli proving right in real life. Most of the gains come later. The penny experiment proves the behavior of compounding, but not the application. Early on, the math is working even when nothing appears to be happening. And this works as a lesson, not a livelihood. In the real world, compounding needs a force that gives it scale. Inflation quietly resets prices higher year after year. For asset owners, that increase becomes part of the compounding base, and that same math now works on a larger starting point. Inflation sets the rate, but the leverage changes the exposure. When you control more asset value, the same 3% increase produces a much larger result. Nothing about the rate changed, only the size of the base. This is where compounding starts to accelerate. And now let's look at what this actually looks like with real buildings. This is accelerated compounding. Same rate, same time, but a very different pace. On the left, $1 million buys a building all cash, and on the right, that same $1 million is used as a down payment to control $4 million of real estate. The rate didn't change, only the amount of assets compounding did. This wasn't about being smarter, it was about being practical. Einstein's wife made a real-world decision with real assets. Compounding doesn't care who's the genius, it cares who uses the structure, and that's the real takeaway. The follow-along calculator gives you the power to run the assumptions and see the outcomes for yourself. And when you understand the numbers, you'll walk into every deal knowing more than the listing agent, more than the realtor, and probably even more than the seller. And that's how you learn to structure deals so these formulas actually work. This is how real estate wealth actually grows. It's not through one big move, but by repeating a disciplined structure over time. Income funds the next step, leverage stays controlled, and the asset base keeps expanding at the same steady rate. And that's compounding leverage. In the next lesson, we'll keep building on it.